welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Urbana-Champaign. We are people of many ages, histories, genders, bodies, identities, and beliefs who are connected by a shared commitment to our mission to build community, seek inspiration, promote justice, and find peace. My name is Kate McDowell, and my pronouns are she, hers. I'm a strong, middle-aged white woman with gray, blonde, and recently some new red hair. I'm a little bit nervous because I did write something to say here. There's something about me that you can't see that I haven't spoken about publicly in many years. I am bisexual. Thank you. I've also been married for 29 years, happily so, and many times I've either not mentioned this or just labeled myself heterosexual because I feel self-conscious, like, who am I to claim an identity that isn't really relevant to my everyday life, even though I knew this when I was 14 years old. But the theme of the service today is our whole lives. And this is part of my whole life. It's who I am. I'm Kate McDowell, I'm bisexual, and I'm very happy to help lead worship today. Speaking of that, please look around at the color-coded lanyards of your neighbors and be aware and respectful of others' needs and boundaries. We are a congregation of all ages, which means we embrace all the little noises and little interruptions our kids and adults can bring into a Sunday morning. As always, people of any age are invited to grab a coloring pack from the box just outside the doors over there if you want to keep your hands busy. And if you need more space to stretch, wiggle around, or just make a bathroom trip, you can go anytime across the entryway into Fellowship Hall where the service is being live streamed. Our children's REE program is on hiatus for the summer, and children and families are welcome to stay in the sanctuary for the entirety of the service. And the nursery is available for little ones 5 and younger. If you are a visitor today, we bid a special welcome and invite you to complete a visitor's card so we may stay connected. And if you're joining us via our live stream, please say hello in the YouTube chat and know that you too are welcome this morning.
Good morning. My name is Michaela Cruz. You can use any pronouns for me, and I am one of the grades 7 to 9 OWL facilitators here at UUCUC. I'd like to call us to worship with these words. What is it we worship when we gather as UUs? Rather than adoration of a deity, we gather to practice reverence for all life. We gather weary and uplifted, despairing and hopeful, broken and yet still whole and fully loved. We make our time and space together holy with our attention and intentions, trusting that our spirits will receive what we need. So the song that we just heard as our prelude to the worship service, did anybody recognize it? We Don't Talk About Bruno from the Disney movie Encanto and written by Hamilton genius Lin-Manuel Miranda. Who knows the movie? Who's seen the movie Encanto? Great. For those of you not familiar with the song, it starts with protagonist Mirabel approaching her family about a topic that she desperately needs information on, an estranged family member named Bruno. And she sings, yeah, about that Bruno. I really need to know about Bruno. Give me the truth and the whole truth, Bruno. But this taboo topic is off limits in the family. They sing, we don't talk about Bruno, no. And it ends as Mirabel concedes, I never should have brought up Bruno. We chose this song this morning to represent what happens when we allow a subject to become taboo instead of talking about it openly and honestly. In the movie, while the family is singing to Mirabel that she can't talk about Bruno, they are all, of course, talking about Bruno. Like, a lot. And in shutting down open and honest conversation about the topic, they instead allow false rumors and gossip to spread. This, not surprisingly, causes Bruno to become vilified by the Madrigal family. And we find out later this turns out to not be a very honest representation of him at all. They end up causing more harm than if they did openly talk about Bruno. And then Mirabelle is left without the information that she needs. She's trying to understand herself, she's trying to satisfy her curiosity, she's trying to keep her family safe, and she really needs information about this topic and is left without it. And the magical family's silence about this absent family member did not actually make him go away. We find out that Bruno was secretly hidden within the walls of their home the entire time. I like this song for the lessons that it teaches about what can go wrong when you refuse to talk about something. So for this reason, I designed the cover of my Owl Facilitator binder, which I've since passed on to the next facilitator, to say, "I talk about Bruno." And is my reminder of what my job is as an Owl Facilitator. Sexuality is one of those topics that when we refuse to talk about it, there is still a lot of talking going on in movies, TVs, magazines, locker rooms, the internet. But when we don't allow the open and honest conversations on sexuality, we encourage rumors and false information to spread. By making sexuality taboo, we help vilify it. We cause more harm than we did if we would openly talk about sexuality. We may leave youth and adults without the information they need to keep themselves safe, to understand themselves, to satisfy their curiosity. And sexuality doesn't go away if we refuse to talk about it. It is always occupying the walls of our church. So I've used this song in Owl class when students are hesitant to speak up. I've used it for parents to remind them that sex ed doesn't just happen in the Owl classroom, that it's still important for them to talk about sexuality at home. I use it to remind the students how important it is for them to bring up topics of sexual health at their doctor's appointments. And I'm bringing it up today to explain to you why we are talking about sexuality in church as part of a service. So today, are we going to talk about sex? Yes, yes, yes. I invite you to bring our focus into this space physically and virtually, and light our chalice with these words by Melanie Davis, the UUA Our Whole Lives Sexuality Education Program Manager. Let us gather today with minds and hearts open to the miracle of life. Let us celebrate the wonder of biology, spirit, sexuality, and destiny that brought us to this point in our lives, and which will continue throughout the rest of our days. May this chalice light our way.
Good morning. I'm Kimberly Cronick. I am an OWL facilitator for K through 1, 4 through 5, and 7 through 9.
And I'm Allison Hansen. I'm an OWL facilitator for K through 1 and 4 through 5.
And we've been blessed to have previous OWL facilitators like Michaela teach the 7 through 9, and we've gotten more people to teach the younger grades. And so we are grateful for those who came before us and started this program, and we're grateful to be able to continue the program for those of you who have young children or if you're 90 years old. So it from K through 1 all the way through an adult program. We're going to model a little thing we call consent. And as you know, our church is big on that. If you're wearing a lanyard and it's green, that means I can just go up and hug you. If you're wearing yellow, I need to ask you. And if you're wearing red, it's like hands off, right? So some people ask, well, how do you teach consent to kindergartners? Well, and some people say, well, sexuality in kindergartners or 3rd and 4th graders? I mean, yeah, so this idea about body autonomy, about knowing your body, about knowing how it feels, what you like, what you don't like, how to ask for something, how to say no to something. That's what we mean by consent. We don't mean it in a specific context. We mean teaching it young so kids have a sense of yes or no, whether it's a family member or not. So one of the things we do is we do little scenarios. So I'm going to just model a few things. Allison's going to be the adult, and I'm going to be the kid. And in this scenario, my grandparents are coming over, and I'm in the house, and I'm greeting them, and this is the scenario right here. So go ahead.
Hi, sweetie. Hi. Can I give you a hug?
No, Grandma. No,
why
Grandma.
not?
No,
Please,
because I love you. I just don't feel like it.
why not?
Because it's no, please, Grandma. Can I give you a fist bump?
Okay.
Thank you. Then we have a scenario where we have a teacher, a beloved teacher, who we had a child had a great experience. It's starting the school year, and they're coming to class, and the former teacher sees the kid.
Oh my goodness, it's so great to see you!
Okay. So in that one, was I giving consent? Yeah. How was I doing that? Was I saying anything? No, I was using my body. So there's different ways of giving consent. There's different ways of saying no without but preserving the relationship. So here's an example that we'll give where we have a beloved babysitter coming over, and the babysitter's a little more affectionate than the kid wants to be right now.
Oh, hey you! Let's play bicycle game!
I love it, but I know the things.
Oh, yeah, come on! It was so much fun last time.
Yeah, I know, but I just don't feel my ribs are really sensitive.
Oh, come on! I'll be gentle. It'll be okay.
Can I get on your back?
Sure. That sounds fun.
All right. So basically just modeling that there's other ways to give and get affection. If you think of something else, offer it. If she says yes, I know. If she says no, I move on to something else. So we hope that whether you're a grandparent, whether you're a parent, whether you're a good friend, one other thing is, I have a friend who's a massage therapist, so every time she greets me, may I show you how she does this? Yes. So she's always like, and it's a lovely, lovely massage I'm getting right here. I absolutely love it. She never asks, but early on we established that's okay. I love it, go ahead and do it. If for some reason I don't want to, I will say something. So there's just many ways of signaling that, and the idea is to just talk about it. Talk about it with Bruno, talk about it with your loved ones.
Add just for fun, I have a couple relatives with chronic pain, and even the lightest touch can actually cause pain for some people. So asking every time just makes good sense. I always love to say, how do you feel about a hug? Would you like a hug? So now I invite you to bid each other welcome this morning by turning to a neighbor or writing in the YouTube chat and say hello. I'll ring our chime to begin and end our time of communal welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you for these lively greetings. It is so good to connect with one another. Now we invite you to stand if you are able and sing our opening hymn, Love Makes a Bridge, number 325 in the Songs from the Living Tradition book. We are only singing, just FYI, I'll just say slow down. We are only singing verses 1, 2, and 5. 1, 2, 5.
Hello, my name is Jenna Baylor. I am a trained OWL facilitator for the adult age groups. Let's see. I like a particularly well-chosen metaphor that gets to the heart of something. These words by Elizabeth Camfield are read during trainings of future facilitators of OWL our whole lives to impress upon us the importance of the task they are about to undertake. So I'd like you to close your eyes and listen to these words. I've often wondered what it would be like if we taught young people swimming in the same way we teach them sexuality. If we told them that swimming was an important adult activity, one they will all have to be skilled at when they grow up, but we never talk with them about it. We never showed them the pool. We just allowed them to stand outside closed doors and listen to all the splashing. Occasionally, they might catch a glimpse of partially clothed people going in and out of the door to the pool, and maybe they'd find a hidden book on the art of swimming. But when they asked a question about how swimming felt or what it was about, they would be greeted with blank or embarrassed looks. Suddenly, when they turned 18, we would fling open the doors to the pool and they would jump in. Miraculously, some might learn to tread water, but some would drown. The OWL program keeps people from drowning in sexual ignorance. Whether they will be working with kindergartners or 80-year-olds, our facilitators are entrusted with providing education that is sensitive, compassionate, bonding, challenging, life-affirming, and empowering. As this story and Michaela's opening illustrates, we want to shine a light on human sexuality and welcome everyone in the dignity, respect, and gratitude for our bodies, hearts, and souls, and the blessings of intimate connection with other people in a myriad of different ways. And so we begin our service with this blessing. Spirit of life and love, may we find appreciation today and in our lives for our embodiment. We are physical creatures, mind, spirit, and soul, housed within our bodies. In particular today, may we find gratitude for our sexuality. May we be grateful for and appreciate our gender identity, our sexual orientation, our physical selves. May we appreciate the pleasure, the intimacy, the connection that comes with and is part of our sexuality. May we also remember that for many, sexuality can bring a variety of emotions: shame, sadness, trauma, anger, pain, and hurt. For all the joy and goodness that embodiment brings, it also has its challenges: aching joints, long-term health conditions, severe illness, and more. Today, as we honor the whole of ourselves, we also honor the whole spectrum of sexual experience, holding the joys in all their richness and the sorrows in all their fullness in our hearts. Amen.
All right, my name is Melissa Watson. I am a K-1 OWL facilitator, and we are going to share during the Time for All Ages a song that came from the curriculum that the children really enjoyed and that we ended up sharing with the parents during the graduation ceremony. And it was really fun, and Allison will help me with that today. So it's to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which I hope everyone is familiar with. And it's a finger play, which means that your hands are going to come into motion. So make sure those are free. Okay? It goes, sperm and egg and uterus,
I know sexuality is not an easy topic to talk about openly in all situations. And this particular situation at a church, with your family and church members around you, knowing you're being live streamed on YouTube right now. So, might be one of the most difficult places to talk about sexuality, but no fear, your OWL facilitators are here, and we have all of our tools for getting people to talk, not in like an ominous way, just, in a good way. One special tool we use is called the question box, and that helps allow anonymity in class. So each week we ask students to submit questions to be answered out loud the following week. So every student is given a piece of paper and expected to put something in the box, even if they only write no questions, so that when somebody does write a question in, nobody knows who it came from. So we have a question box opportunity for you. When you arrived in service, you got an index card and a pencil for you to write your questions down. So when you have written down a question, you'll hold it up for the usher. And remember, everybody's going to write something, even if you write no questions. All right, so what kind of questions? If you need an index card, raise your hand. The ushers will make sure that you get one. But what kind of questions should you ask? Well, let me tell you, as OWL facilitators, we are not the bearers of all knowledge. We are not the experts. We are not the teachers. We are the facilitators. So that means we get to help participants clarify their own values, verbalize their ideas with their peers, realize their hopes and plans for the future, encourage critical thinking skills on difficult topics. So we don't give answers, and today we will not be giving you answers either. Today we are going to utilize the life experiences that our youth bring to this congregation. So your questions will be answered by OWL graduates. All right, so now is the time, if you've been wondering anything about our OWL program, that you can ask youth who have actually graduated from this program what it's like, what the classes are like, what they're learning about, or any of your own questions about sexuality to see what the youth learned in their classes. So we will deliver your questions to youth who will work on writing their responses during the service, and then we adults will read the questions and the responses later toward the end of the service. So remember, if you're stumped, you can always write no questions. Just like in our regular OWL class, if nobody ever puts questions in the question box, we OWL facilitators, we kind of pad the box with the FAQs that we know most students are curious about but haven't really thought to ask yet. So, we can always do that if we need to. Unlike OWL, though, today we're not guaranteeing that every question will be answered. Each panelist is going to, have the opportunity to answer 1 to 3 questions just based off their time and, of course, respecting what the youth feel comfortable writing about. But this anonymous question box not only allows you to ask questions anonymously, but it also allows the youth to answer questions anonymously. So one way, if people don't feel like talking in class, maybe it's the speaking out loud, or maybe they don't want certain ideas attached to them, we can have youth give their opinions and share their ideas by writing them down and then having somebody else read it. So this is one tool we have to get people talking about sexuality that still allows them to be a little anonymous. So this is your chance now to write down your questions or write no questions, hand them to the usher. If you're a little bit later and you still got a question coming even though we've moved on, no problem, just raise that up again and our ushers will make sure that they get them to me and to our youth who will be answering those. All right, thank you.
Each week, we pause in the middle of our service for a spiritual practice that reflects how we are all connected and makes space for the joys and sorrows we carry with us individually and collectively. We begin this practice with an embodied ritual of singing a blessing song, and today you'll be invited to come forward during that song up front or in the middle in the back, and during that song to drop a stone for a sorrow or a petal for a joy into our shared bowls of water. You are invited to write down the joys and sorrows on the cards you'll find in the pew rack or submit them via email to joysandsorrows@uucuc.com. We will share those aloud next week in service, and you can also find them posted online on the members section of the website on a password-protected page. We trust that this act of sharing lightens our burdens and amplifies our joys, even if just for this hour. So I invite you to come forward if you are moved to do so as we sing May the Long Time Sun. If you haven't yet, submit a written joy or sorrow for reading next week.
Hello again. Kelly invited me up here to discuss how my participation as a parent and a facilitator went in OWL, and I was really grateful, especially if it would encourage anyone else to participate. When I was younger, a pre-mom version of myself, I remember learning about OWL when I first joined the congregation, and it was honestly a huge surprise for me as freshly coming from Catholicism, as you can imagine. I grew up thinking a lot of negative things about myself and my body that I knew didn't feel right in my heart, which is what led me away from Catholicism in the first place. And from an early age, sexual health information from the adults in my life was either omitted or twisted or just completely not factual, but altogether very confusing. And how many times had I wished that something like OWL had existed for me? I remember feeling like crying over that confusion all those years ago, and I remember feeling like crying when I learned about OWL, but it was happy tears because I envisioned one day, my future children would be educated, well-informed humans once they took those classes, and they wouldn't have to be confused about their bodies and their sexuality. Funny story, none of my kids have actually completely finished OWL yet, but I have as a facilitator. A little backstory for me, I've worked in early childhood for most of my adult life, and a big portion of that was as a twos teacher, where I like to think that I perfected the art of potty training. You can ask me for tips and tricks later. Over that portion of time, I did have to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations with a lot of parents, and some are more open to discussion of bodily functions and parts than others. So while the idea of discussing sexual health and body education to other people's kids, was a little bit intimidating, it wasn't impossible for me, especially because it was something I could get behind. Allison is someone I know from taking care of her children, actually, as 2-year-olds as well, and she told me that she was going to be taking the OWL facilitation training, and it was just that little push that I needed to feel safe to sign up. And I just want to tell everyone, the courses are so great. They give you so much information, and it is a lot of information, but they do it in such a thoughtful way, and they give you lots of opportunities to ask questions and be vulnerable. And it is very thoughtfully presented. The trainers take deep care in making sure that potential facilitators do have those chances to ask questions in a safe space, and you don't leave without a clear understanding of what being a facilitator means and how you should facilitate the classes. The curriculum itself is designed and all prepared for you, and it comes with a lot of really great books and resources, even ones that I myself, as an early childhood educator, hadn't heard of yet. And while there's definitely a couple of sections that made me take a deep breath, in the end, those parts weren't really hard to discuss at all because kids really don't have the same taboos that we grown-ups have unless we model those for them. It's a privilege to provide this service for families, and I'm grateful that we offer it in our community. It's not just to our congregation, I don't know if you guys know that, but it's also available to the public as well, and so I've actually referred it to several of my friends who are very grateful. 2 of my kiddos will be starting OWL next year, and I'll be teaching again, which I'm very excited about. My middle child was registered last year, but he struggles with group situations, so I was actually able to practice the material at home with him, kind of got myself a little head start. And that in itself was really rewarding because he and I got to have a lot of great talk about boundaries, bodies, and the big B, babies. Not just with my boy too, but with lots of wonderful kids that are in this congregation and in our community. These subjects don't have to be scary. We can have fun while we talk about the serious things through playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy. Ultimately, the positives of this kinds of education will pay dividends for kids in the future, and for the parents who participate, you will feel empowered too. So thank you.
We're going to do an audible because the question box questions aren't ready yet. So my name is Kelly Skinner, and I am your Director of Faith Development here at UUCUC, and it is an honor and a privilege to work with each of these facilitators that are helping us with our service today, as well as to do this particular service. And I admit that I have some internal glee in planning this service every year as a former Catholic whose mom used to send her articles in college about abstinence, believe it or not, and also as a mom of 5 kids who, while my kids didn't go through OW, I wish that I knew of this program when my children were little. So why is it okay for us to talk about sex at church? And I would argue that there's actually no better place than church, especially this church, our UU church, to talk about this topic. So did you know that the UUA, which is the umbrella organization for all the UU congregations and UUs, has been committed to sexual rights and health for more than 30 years? This is not a new thing. 50 years, I'm sorry, more than 50 years. So this is not a new thing. Congregations and national leaders, they rose to the personal and political challenges of the AIDS crisis. We led interfaith coalitions in the movement for marriage equality, and we are at the forefront of the ongoing struggle for gender and reproductive justice. UUism sees sexual expression as an affirming part of the human experience, and we support everyone's right to learn about and engage in sex in consensual, pleasurable, developmentally appropriate ways. We also acknowledge that sexuality in our society is damaged by violence, exploitation, dishonesty, abuse of power, and sexualization. Our embrace of sexuality as a core element of the human experience has proved to be life-saving and life-giving, literally, for people who have emerged from religious traditions that have shamed and diminished them. They have found that UUism encourages them to discover or reconnect with the rich and vibrant beauty of their own sexuality. Scientific evidence is central to our UU perspective on sexuality. We trust statistics that show education decreases rates of unintended pregnancy and improves health outcomes. We know that honoring each person's sexual identity actually decreases self-harm and bullying. And we know that consent education decreases sexual assault. And the UUA partners with advocacy and support organizations to assist trans and non-binary persons and to resist hate, rhetoric, and legislation that harms the entire LGBTQIA+ alphabet soup community. Congregations like ours implement welcoming congregation and the welcoming renewal program year after year after year to support those queer members and visitors of ours. And because our knowledge and understanding of this beautifully complex topic is constantly changing and expanding, we have monthly webinars for facilitators and people like me who are religious education professionals and clergy, and for the public at large. And the UUA is developing an anti-racist, anti-oppressive sexuality course for seminarians and ministers and religious educators. The presidents of the UUA released public statements regarding gender and reproductive justice and expressed solidarity with clergy and congregations at protests and marches across the country. We UUs are not afraid to talk about sex and to make our values around sexuality public. And as a secular, comprehensive sexuality program that's been in use since 2000, the year 2000, OWL is a gift that congregations like ours offer to children and youth and teens and adults, as well as our larger community. There are more than 16,000 people who have been trained to facilitate OWL, including the 13 people who are currently trained and active here at UUC. And these people who have made the commitment to OWL have been essential to that program's essential and life-enhancing implementation. But OWL's effectiveness, it's not just talking about sex, it's intentionally talking about sex. And it's effective because we have those conversations with values embedded into the curriculum. Those values are ideals and beliefs and attitudes that actually guide behavior. They explain what we understand to be good or bad, desirable or undesirable. For example, in terms of gender and orientation, we are who we are. We don't choose our sexual identity. However, our values determine whether we accept and appreciate our own and others' sexual identity. Our values are guided by the families and the culture that we grow up with, our faith traditions, and our life experiences. They affect the types of people that we find attractive, what smells and sounds that we find arousing, our decisions on sexual health and parenting, and whether or how we'll engage in relationships. And those values shape our views about sexuality as a positive or a negative part of our humanity. OWL helps people of all ages explore their own human sexuality as a part of our unique human persona. We have intellectual development, we have sexuality, or sexual development, we have an emotional development. But we explore that sexual development through a framework of the values of self-worth, responsibility, sexual health, and justice and inclusivity. These values honor sexuality as a good and essential part of the human experience, even as we recognize that aspects of it can be misused or violated. Those values are reflected in every activity, reading, and resource that we present within the curriculum. They are the music that sings throughout all levels of the program. Self-worth is defined in OWL as the belief that people at all ages and all stages are entitled to dignity and self-worth and to their own attitudes and beliefs about sexuality. And each grade level or each level that we present of OWL includes readings, and many workshops include suggestions for songs that reflect this worship topic and the other OWL values. The value of responsibility calls us to enrich our lives by expressing sexuality in ways that enhance human wholeness and fulfillment, and that express delight and pleasure and responsible sexual choices, love, and commitment. The value of sexual health says that knowledge about human sexuality is helpful and not harmful. We all have the right to accurate information about sexuality and to have our questions answered. We teach that healthy sexual relationships are consensual and non-exploitative, that they're mutually pleasurable, that they're safe, that they're relationships that are developmentally appropriate, and that they're respectful, and that they're based on mutual expectations and caring for one another. This value also acknowledges the many different ways there are to express sexual feelings, either alone or with a partner, and that it's healthier for young teens to to postpone sexual intercourse. And the justice and inclusivity value acknowledges that people of all ages, races, ethnicities, genders, backgrounds, income levels, physical and mental abilities, and sexual orientations must have equal values and rights when it comes to sexuality. Our programs transform a cultural climate of confusion and fear about sexuality into a new reality in which every person's inherent worth and dignity is valued. This is especially important when we incorporate faith material into the curriculum. You know, I don't know if you know, but the OWL program can be taught either secularly or it can integrate religious rituals such as chalice lightings and faith-relevant discussions. And that's important because liberal religious sexuality education gives children, youth, and adults a safe forum in which to make meaning of their lives. We choose right now to teach our program in a secular way so that we can be inclusive as possible, but we have options if we choose differently in the future. Al also employs something called experiential learning theory, which is a process of completing an activity before you talk about it, or reflect on what's learned, or considering how that new knowledge is put to use. And this model fits really, really well with our affirmation of each person's search for individual truth and meaning. In our elementary grades, Al brings these experiences home when we ask our kids to draw and read the things that at home with their parents that supplement what they're learning in their workshops. And it also supports the underlying philosophy that parents and guardians and their special adults are the children's primary sexuality educators. In our 7 to 9 program, one of my favorite ones is an experiential activity where they use grab bags of different colored candies to teach the impact of contraceptives and barriers on the statistical likelihood of unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. And we don't do this yet, but programs for high schoolers and young adults dive deeper into what decision-making and justice looks like related to sexuality. And for adults, topics include dating, relationships, sexual health, family dynamics, changing bodies, losses, and pleasure. The important thing, though, is that while participants may not recall the specifics that they learned in their OWL workshop later in life, they will recall the music of those values, as well as the experience of being fully accepted, conversing comfortably and normalized sexual topics, and learning how to make values-informed decisions that respect their own and others' sexuality and self-worth. We currently offer the elementary and secondary levels of this curriculum and are really excited to offer the adult program in the fall. Some of you might be wondering, what could be left for adults to learn? But we are never too old or too experienced to keep learning about sexuality. So this service is inspired and includes thoughts by the UU-OWL program manager, Dr. Melanie Davis, and I've had the chance to talk with her and meet her on various occasions. And she tells a story about how she was traveling by train a few years ago and entered into a conversation with a Jewish man in the dining car that she was in. And they talked about their professions, he as a cantor at his church and hers as a sex educator. He disclosed the tensions he felt being married to the mother of his children while being sexually attracted to men. He said he read a book that claimed his same-sex attraction was due to his having been damaged by bad parenting. And for the next 30 minutes, they discussed sexual orientation and the implications of religious values and psychological theory. Dr. Davis didn't challenge his religious beliefs, but she did point out the flaws in the theory that he referenced. If he had been in the adult OWL program, he would have been invited to examine the values he was taught. And he would have learned that his sexual orientation didn't make him damaged goods, but was rather an intrinsic and good part of his humanity. Another illustration of the value of sex ed for adults comes from a woman in her 70s who mistakenly walked into an OWL for older adults workshop at her congregation. And when she realized her mistake, she said, I don't need this class. I'm a widow and I'm not even dating anybody. But her friends encouraged her to stay. And she remained throughout the program. And at the end, she told the group she shared, just tossed out my old pajamas and I bought a pair that feels wonderful against my skin. I now know that I deserve that kind of pleasure, and I don't need somebody else to appreciate it. And that OWL program for older adults was created to help older adults feel more confident and more hopeful and more empowered in their right to sensual pleasure and sexual expression in whatever form that might take, from buying silky new pajamas, to coming out of the closet, to protecting their sexual health, and just to experience more joy in their lives. We are so incredibly blessed. We are part of a faith tradition that values us as sexual beings throughout our whole entire lives. And while we may express that sexuality in so many different ways, and we may not always understand each other's identities and our behaviors, but if we consider sexuality within the context of our own UU values and our whole lives' values of self-worth, responsibility, sexual health, and justice and inclusion, we will treat our own and other sexuality with respect and acceptance and joy. May it be so.
We have come to the part of the service where we are going to answer your question box questions. Now, my fear of having to pad the question box was apparently unfounded because you submitted 37 questions to our question box. And our youth answered 13 of them. Now, if you're looking at the time and thinking, oh geez, don't worry, they are masters of brevity, so it will be okay. So I also learned from this, as Kelly was saying, you can learn sexuality at any age. You definitely proved in the question box that you have plenty of questions about sexuality in adulthood and older adulthood. There were plenty of those questions there. Okay. But your youth had a chance to answer what questions they felt most comfortable with, and surprisingly, it wasn't questions about older adulthood. So, a lot of those didn't get answered, but the youth picked 13 questions to answer for you. So the first question is, are you glad you took OWL? Yes.
Sometimes we do have longer answers, but not always. One thing I also want to say before I read the questions is, research is changing. It's kind of behind everything. We're learning new. The sexuality and body, it's ever-going discoveries. So one of the things we let the folks know when we're teaching this is, look, we don't have all the answers. Right now, best research shows or predicts or says this is what we know, but it may change. So we try to always let folks know that we're giving them the most updated information, but we don't have all the answers. And we don't also share our personal stories when we answer questions. How do you know when you're ready to have sex with someone specific or anyone? When you both have a talk about boundaries and are comfortable with each other.
How does OWL help you in your life? It helps me be more confident in a taboo topic.
What was the most insightful thing you learned in OWL class? That consent is so underlined, important, and no underlined is a full sentence. There are so many resources out there to help you.
How can parents help their kids feel comfortable asking questions or discussing concerns about sexuality? Make sure they never feel like you'll get mad, and try to remind them they can talk to you and initiate conversations.
How do you know if you like girls or boys or anyone? If you feel attracted towards them, that could be a strong sign. Love who you love and don't be ashamed.
Were you too nervous, or were you able to learn what you wanted to know in OWL? Definitely nervous, but education is more important than ignorance.
Why do some people care so much about what other people do with their bodies? I think it has something to do with them being insecure about themselves and take it out on other people.
Did OWL help you understand your sexual identity? Yes, I realized I identify as aro-ace during OWL. That means aromantic asexual, meaning not experiencing romantic attraction or not experiencing sexual attraction.
Do you have to marry someone you share sex with? It depends on you. Many people have sex without getting married. Many people are also marry the person they first have sex with. It really depends on how you feel.
What qualifies as queer as opposed to gay or straight? Anything you want it to be. I love that they gave that answer because we spend so much time trying to relax about labels in class, and if a label feels good to you and it helps you understand yourself, you're welcome to use it, but don't feel this pressure to have to figure out who you are and what labels are right and not right, and are they gonna change, to just be okay with being you, with or without labels.
Are boys always bad? Well, no. I wish I could add something to that, but I can't think of anything. No, just kidding. We have 2 male instructors currently, at least 2, and we're always looking for more. You may know that Paul Kaiser is one of our instructors, and Martin is one of our instructors, and they're great. Joe was one of our instructors, so Jerry, oh my God, Jerry's not here. Jerry is one of our instructors as well. So many of us aren't here today, but we are represented.
And the last question. With the sperm and egg and uterus song, what happens if the kids ask, where does the sperm and egg come from? How do they get to one place? Tell them where the sperm and the egg came from. I think maybe the question behind the question, which we're always trying to figure out when we answer these, what's the question they're really asking? Do we hide anything? Are there any questions we don't answer? If they ask questions that seem a little more intense. And as Kim already alluded to, we will answer every question except for personal questions about ourselves. So if we were to get a personal question, do you, have you, we might just change it to what's the average or what percentage of people, but we would still answer every question. There was one time I made the mistake of thinking I didn't need to answer a question because I thought it was just a joke. And it turns out, I think they were trying to figure out what to get us for a Christmas present. And then I felt really bad that I didn't answer it. So yes, we answer all the questions.
And one other thing I'll add, when we start the class, it seems like every class, whatever age, there's a little more reserve going on until they build those relationships with each other, until they build relationships with us. And I really do believe that this question box, where they get to ask anonymous questions and we get to talk about them among ourselves as facilitators and then answer them the next week, creates some of that community. It takes away some of that reservedness. And one of the best things is to see how the students grow and change and ask questions and are talking with each other and lingering after class. So I have to say, again, grateful for Kelly for being our RE instructor and everyone who's sent their children, recommended children come, and for those of us who are teachers. Thank you all. What? Oh, yeah. Kelly's reminding me to say, or to repeat, facilitators don't have to have all the answers. So if you're thinking about doing it, give it a try. You can take the class, you get trained. If you fail, you don't have to be an instructor, or you can't be. But all of us pass. And let me say, I will add a personal, because I can do it here. When I was thinking about being an instructor, I was scared. I thought, am I happy enough? Do I know enough? Am I a good role model? Am I current enough? Will I expose there were topics that we were teaching that we were all vulnerable with. So we talk together before we instruct. We divide up the topics. If there's anything that's stuck in us, we work it out before we teach. And if something happens in class, we work it out with the instructors afterwards. So that's our commitment to you and your children. Thanks.
Right. We've talked a lot about sex today. It may have been a little uncomfortable, but you might actually have had a little fun and learned something along the way. This wasn't just an intellectual exercise, though. My hope, is that you had a chance to be engaged and maybe excited enough to be raving fans and help us with the important work of sacred sex ed. So how can you help? That was our little agenda. First, we need more folks like the OWL facilitators up here and the others who weren't able to join us today. These folks are doing life-changing and life-saving work. There are people in our congregation and in our community, be they 8 or 80, that need to hear what we have to say about sex ed. Right now, we offer classes for K through 1, 4 through 5, 7 through 8, and adult. Classes top out at 12 to 15 participants. So they're not huge groups. It's sort of intimate, and everyone gets a chance. Sometimes we do have to turn people away. I think frequently we have to turn people away. We need a deeper bench of people trained to do OWL, to keep doing what we're doing, and even expand. If you're open to being open and willing to bring your vulnerability, your awkwardness, your sense of humor, and a great poker face, we'd love to have you consider being a facilitator. There are 2 trainings coming up in our area in person, and I did my training online, and it was actually really great. We will 100% fund your training if you're willing to commit to teaching at least 2 classes. Next, how can you help? Please help us get the word out about what UC is doing. So about half of our class participants are not from the congregation. They're from the larger community. And they learn about that through word of mouth. So we'd love to share more with the greater CU community about the important work that we're offering. And finally, sign up. This means if you are an adult, join us for class this fall. Kelly and Pamela and I will be teaching OWL adult level. If you're a parent, please consider enrolling your child in the OWL K through 1 or 4 through 5 class this spring, or the 7 through 8 class next year. And now, please rise in body or spirit for our closing song, How Could Anyone, number 1053 in the Teal hymnal. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen.